Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today's game will be played against Prism. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. Today's game features my Switchblade list, and if you'd like to check that list out for yourself or try it on Talishar, the FaB deck link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and that link is also available in the video description. A Patreon subscription gets you Discord access, your name is listed in every daily FaB gameplay video, and there are other great bonuses to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. We win the die roll, and we are going to choose to go second. Current Prism builds that I have experienced go one of two ways: auras or heralds. An aura's Prism is going to run Luminaris and is going to throw heralds at us, but they are running far more auras than their herald-centric builds. Herald-centric builds, of course, are running all of the best heralds and are much more focused on getting their herald and angel attacks over the top of blocks. For which one is more difficult for FaB? Herald-centric builds are far more difficult for us to deal with because we don't block very well, and a 7-power Herald of Protection is likely going to hit and generate value for Prism. An auras-centric build is largely free for FaB. Auras don't block. Prism has to spend far too many resources to play an aura, and with FaB having access to a Phoenix Flame at the end of a chain, popping Spectra is far easier for FaB than for any of the other aggressive decks that Prism has preyed on in the past. So overall, we are treating Prism like a tempo, aggressive-based match, because that is what is harder for us to deal with. If we knew that this Prism was auras-centric, we would choose to go first and take advantage of the fact that many of the cards in her deck don't block. But because we don't know this Prism, we are going to play as if she is heralds and choose to go second. That will let us block with our opening hand. We draw back up at the end of Prism's turn, and then we can throw damage at her life total or at her hand, and she does not get to draw back up. As far as sideboarding goes, my approach has been to run Searing Emberblade, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx in this matchup. I am rethinking that with some advice from other FaB players. I believe Harmonized Kodachi, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, is likely the best way to play this matchup. We do less damage overall, but the Kodachi's threatening angels are going to get more cards out of Prism's hand or more value early in a turn than we would with our Emberblade. With an Emberblade build, as you'll see in this game, we need to open our turn with a Draconic go-again attack, which can put us at risk of Arclight Sentinel, which gets blocks out of Prism for full value. But the Harmonized Kodachi coming in for 1 at the start of the turn to threaten an angel gives Prism an odd decision to make. She could block with a card from hand, she could block with her Phantasmal Footsteps, then pitch to give the Footsteps a defense value, but that's getting a full card out of her hand to stop one Kodachi, and that first Kodachi is usually followed by a second. So I do think that Kodachi, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, is the correct loadout in this matchup, as weird as that is. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is correct over Mask of Momentum, but we are not using it to get value out of it. We are using it as a deterrent. Prisms run Figment of Judgment, which, when combined with their Halo of Illumination, is a instant speed tutor that will flip whatever attack we get from our deck with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx over in Banish Zone, which means we cannot play it. So if you break your Mask of the Pouncing Lynx to pull Lava Burst out of your deck, the Prism will respond with Halo of Illumination to pull Figment of Judgment out of her deck, then flip your Lava Burst over, and you have wasted your Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. I call it a deterrent because we are keeping it around to prevent Prism from using the Halo to pull Figment of Triumph out of her deck, which gives all of our attacks in that turn -1 power, essentially reverse Art of War. So by keeping Pouncing Lynx around, we make sure that Prism does not tutor Triumph, because if she does, now our Pouncing Lynx is online and Prism cannot tutor Figment of Judgment. It's a lot to keep in mind. You'll see it in this game. As far as the rest of our equipment, Prism does deal arcane damage with Herald of Ravages and Figment of Ravages, but it is not so impactful that we are going to sacrifice the block value of Flamescale Furnace or the unpreventable damage and damage buff clauses of Tiger Stripe Shuko, so we will be leaving our Spell Void in the inventory, and of course we are using Snapdragon Scalers. Because we are using Emberblade in this matchup, we are cutting our bleed outs and boarding in our Spreading Flames. We are leaving our defense reactions at home. While they would get value blocking big heralds, that is not our game plan. We are just racing Prism. And that is the game plan in this matchup. We, on average, deal more damage than she does. If she can produce angels, she is going to get value out of them from their Ward 4, and because we do not have our Kodachis, we don't have an easy way to break the angels besides just throwing damage at Prism and letting her not block. But overall, we will deal more damage than Prism does, and our big Art of War or Spreading Flames turns are still going to be very impactful. That's kind of it. There isn't much to say about this matchup. It is not one that I run into very often. Supposedly that will change based on the new Prism cards coming in heavy hitters, but for now we can practice against Prism as is. We'll jump into the game and see how all of our preparation comes together. With our Phoenix Flame in discard, we can look at our opening hand and see that it blocks fairly well. Prism coming with a single Herald of Protection, she could potentially pitch a blue to her Luminaris to give this Herald go again, then come in with a Wartune Herald for 7, which would be very bad for us. We can't really play around that. What we want to play around is this Herald hitting. I am not going to put Prism on any of the instant speed Herald buffs. I am just going to block this Herald for 8 with our 2 finishers and a Ronin Renegade. Giving up either finisher does feel a bit bad here when we have our Shuko available. Keeping Lava Burst to get damage through to Prism over Spectral Shields or Angels with Tiger Stripe Shuko would be very nice, but it is more important that I have a Draconic starter in hand than a finisher. There's always a chance that I draw into another finisher, but if I do not have a Draconic starter, my turn doesn't exist. I can't just attack with weapons, then throw something without go again like I could with Kodachis. So we will block 8. Prism does not play either of the cards from her hand or activate Luminaris. She just arsenals and passes to us. The best way to maximize value from this hand is unfortunately not to set up an arsenal. If we pitch our Brand with Cinderclaw to play Mounting Anger, then Ronin Renegade, then pick up and play Phoenix Flame and end the turn with Lava Burst, we are presenting 13 points of damage. threatening it anyway. We have a potential 14 points of damage if the Mounting Anger hits. This doesn't give us an arsenal, but with the cards we've drawn, that just isn't really possible. We could look to arsenal this Lava Burst simply by not playing it, but at that point we are sacrificing our Shuko trigger, and with Prism not having anything on the board to stop our damage, no Spectral Shields, no Angels, I am more inclined to just throw a bunch of damage at her and see what happens. Because she has the Wave of Reality, attacking with either Ronin Renegade or Mounting Anger first doesn't really matter. In either way, the Wave of Reality functions as a Spectral Shield, and Prism will only need to give one card from hand to stop the Mounting Anger. What she does, Mounting Anger here will eat the Spectral Shield, which is fine. We have to get it out of the way at some point, and we do take a card out of Prism's hand. We take a second card out of Prism's hand as she uses the Phantasmal Footsteps to block the Phoenix Flame, putting a Figment back into her deck. Finally, Lava Burst for 6 does get a Soul Shield. We see that this Prism is running Arclight Sentinel. Not every Prism is, because it doesn't block. So there are turns where it is just awkward. As far as sequencing here, I am going to try to stick this red Brand with Cinderclaw into Arsenal. We can just play Brand with Cinderclaw, pitch our Warmongers to Searing Emberblade, pick up and play Phoenix Flame, then Double Strike. We aren't pushing a ton of damage, but we are getting our Shuko trigger, and we are setting up a 5-card hand for our next turn. Overall, this is not very exciting, but we are at least pushing some damage this turn, and we are not giving Prism too many opportunities to get good blocks. She can block the Emberblade with a 3 block from hand, but even if she's using the Phantasmal Footsteps, she's giving us a full card to stop 1 point of damage. It just isn't very exciting for either of us at this point. The Shuko Double Strike does get through, so we are slowly but surely leaking damage here. Again, with Prism not blocking any of this, the Pouncing Lynx finding a Salt the Wound for 6 is pretty enticing, but we do need to just keep it around. We know that Prism is just waiting on that halo. Here, Herald coming for 4 with Dominate is not anything that I am going to block. We are going to let Prism tutor her Figment, and we'll see what she does with her remaining cards. Simply grabbing an Angel to generate the Spectral Shield off of the Figment, then transforming that Figment. So we are going to have to punch through this Angel if we want to damage Prism. We can do that with Brand with Cinderclaw. Prism can, of course, block from hand to protect the Angel, but we are going to be able to go wide enough this turn that Prism can't protect everything. If Prism does block this Brand, we can follow up with Bittering Thorns, targeting the Angel. Either we target Prism and she sacrifices the Angel to gain ward and our Bittering Thorns does not hit and does not generate the effect, or Bittering Thorns does hit the Angel. We still don't deal 4 points of damage to Prism, but the +1 from Thorns is active. The only reason that I did not open with Bittering Thorns to get the +1 effect is that I want Bittering Thorns to be Draconic. At this point, I can pitch a Salt the Wound to play Bittering Thorns. It is Draconic. I can then spend the floating resource to play Spreading Flames, which generates our third Draconic link. Phoenix Flame is now free and comes in for 2, and we can pitch our last Salt the Wound to Emberblade for 4. I want to pitch Salt the Wound here rather than play it because, 1, I want Link's targets in the deck, despite not intending to break Pouncing Links at all this game. It's just good practice to keep finishers in your deck. And with Prism soaking up all of these attacks with Ward and cards from hand, Salt the Wound just isn't going to deal any damage. Here, Bittering Thorns is blocked in full by the Spectral Shield and Celestial Cataclysm. We'll see if this Spreading Flames gets blocked as well. It does. So if the Phoenix Flame connects, all that Salt would come in for is 4, an extra point of damage from the Phoenix Flame hit and an extra point of damage from the Shuko, or we just pitch it to the Emberblade, which does 4 damage as well. So we're keeping Link's targets in our deck. We are keeping our deck size high just in case this goes to fatigue. And we aren't sacrificing damage to do so. So this is just good all-around gameplay. Good lessons to internalize. Here we have a Herald of Protection coming for 7. Our hand is a little clunky, so we could block this Herald. We could block with Flamescale Furnace, Lava Burst, and Mounting Anger. Then on our turn, attack with Rising Resentment and play the Ancestral Empowerment to push 4 points of damage and draw a new card. We could also let the Herald connect. We take 7. Prism gets an Angel and a Spectral Shield. And on our turn, we are hoping to draw a blue with Ancestral Empowerment. If we draw a yellow, the hand is also playable. We could pitch the yellow for Mounting Anger, then activate FaB and end the turn with Lava Burst. But if we draw a red, we just can't really do anything. I've been finding in my own play lately that I am a very aggressive player. I often trend towards the aggressive value line rather than overall value in a turn cycle, and I'm starting to learn that that is incorrect. So looking at this now, I am more inclined to just block, put Furnace, Mounting Anger, and Lava Burst in front of this Herald, then go for 4, and if we find a blue, we Emberblade Phoenix Flame. If we find something else, we stick it into Arsenal. So that's what I'm looking at doing now. You can see in the past, I just take this damage. And the only reason I don't like taking this damage is that we have to draw a blue or a yellow for this turn to make sense. If we draw a red off of the Ancestral Empowerment, we just let Prism get a ton of value for no reason. We don't even play the Ancestral Empowerment here. We're pitching our Lava Burst. This Ancestral is going to get damage over the top of the block and the Spectral Shield, but it finds a red, which we will pitch to Furnace to come in with Emberblade and a Phoenix Flame. But overall, I just don't think this was worth it. For how much value Prism got out of that Herald hitting, we didn't do nearly enough on our end to justify what was essentially 12 points of value. 7 from the Herald, 1 from the Spectral Shield, and 4 from the Angel. I think not blocking there was a big mistake on my part, and I am too aggressively minded when I play FaB. It really is something that I need to work on, especially against these heroes, like Prism, like Bravo, like Uzuri, that can play these big, valuable 2-card hands. Opening here with Ronin Renegade, we can follow that with Searing Emberblade. We have a choice to make. of how we want to utilize this Ravenous Rabble and Enlightened Strike. I like throwing Ravenous early here just to see what is on top of the deck and to see if we wanted to think about bottoming Warmonger's Diplomacy to the E-Strike to draw a card. As it is, we don't. So we are just going to Emberblade, Phoenix Flame, Arsenal this E-Strike, and move on. Still not looking to break Pouncing Links. It's tempting, I would like to do it, but we don't want to play into the Halo of Illumination. This hand is very, very good. So we are just going to take all of the damage. This is a hand where I am perfectly happy to let Prism do Prism things because we get to attack with Brand, Blaze, Phoenix Flame, E-Strike. E-Strike likely bottoming the Soul Bead Strike and getting more damage from its 5 power and the card that we draw compared to attacking with Emberblade. Blocking with Furnace just for value. The Triumph effect here is going to prevent a lot of damage coming at Prism, but we are still sending a lot her way. Although oddly good for us is the fact that Prism draws into what I'm assuming is a very awkward hand after the Triumph effect, and in fact kind of works against her own interest by playing the Arclight Sentinel. So she isn't even going to get the full value of her Triumph effect because our turn is ending prematurely. So we do 2 points of damage, which breaks the Angel, and we are going to pitch our blue to Emberblade the Arclight Sentinel. We will keep our Blaze Headlongs in hand and our E-Strike in Arsenal. And Prism follows this with a Shimmers of Silver from Arsenal, which is not something that we will ever need to attack. We do not need to concern ourselves with this card. I am kind of thinking it was even a mistake for Prism to put it into the Arsenal, rather than just using it to pitch for something. Based on what we have in hand, we have a number of options available to us. This is a matchup, and knowing that our Prism runs Arclight Sentinel, where I don't want to rely on Snapdragon Scalers to make a turn function. I want to use the Snapdragon Scalers to make a large turn larger by using it at the end of a chain to do something like a double finisher. So here, I would be inclined to E-Strike, bottom Warmonger's Diplomacy, draw a card, then use Snapdragon Scalers. But instead, I am thinking I want to E-Strike from Arsenal, bottom our E-Strike in hand, and say go again. That deals 5 points of damage. Then we Blaze Headlong, Searing Emberblade, Phoenix Flame for a total value of 17. And we are not putting ourselves at risk to Arclight Sentinel,
wasting our Snapdragon Scalers.
I agree with that same thought process in the past, so we will see how Prism wants to deal with this big attack. Using Phantasmal Footsteps here is very risky for Prism. If we had an Art of War in hand, then we just break the Footsteps. But of course we don't, so we cannot punish Prism for playing so aggressively with her Footsteps. Throwing a whoops there, I did cut out a part of this game where I followed the Enlightened Strike with a Searing Emberblade. Searing Emberblade, of course, does not have go again in that case. My opponent was sportsmanlike enough to let me undo. Just playing out the turn. Coming in with Blaze Headlong, which puts Prism to 2. Here I am going to break Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Let's get some value from it before the game ends. Now, I don't think this is necessary, but I also don't think it's wrong. What we do by forcing Prism to use the Halo here is she needs to spend a resource to use Halo. She draws a card. We're also forcing her to have a Herald to make this happen. She does find Judgment, and she flips our Salt, so we don't have that available. But what we were doing by waiting as long as we did is that first, Empyrean Rapture only works on Prism's turn, so she does not get a free transformation of the Angel here. So depending on what she drew and what is in her arsenal, it could be that the literal only thing for her to do here is pitch this card she drew to transform the Figment, and we see that is what she does. So depending on what she had in mind for this next turn, she now doesn't get to do it. So our Mask maybe saved us some life, it maybe prevented Prism from doing anything, but overall, Pouncing Lynx was just a deterrent this game. Prism just passes the turn and sends it back to us. We draw into a very, very good hand of cards for closing out this game. We can throw 4 instances of Double Strike with the Ancestral Empowerment, buffing one of them. Whichever attack Prism doesn't block, we will Ancestral Empowerment up to be lethal damage. Hopefully we draw into something draconic with Go Again so that we can attack with our Emberblade. But the first thing we're going to do is attack with a single Double Strike. And what we're really hoping happens here is that Prism blocks with Footsteps to try and protect this Angel. And we see that's exactly what she does. So she will pitch to the Footsteps. Then we Ancestral Empowerment over the top of Footsteps. So not only did we take a card out of Prism's hand, but we destroy the Angel. And that is good enough to get a concession from Prism. So overall, I do think that we caught this Prism on more of an Auras-centric Iris plan, and really punish her for that. Iris is very bad against aggro, so she has to pivot into a Luminaris plan, and of course is not exactly built for it. So we don't have to worry as much about instant speed attack buffs to Angels or Heralds. 2, we drew very well. We certainly cannot discount that. We never had to take an off turn, maybe aside from the Arclight Sentinel, but that was more Prism having a bad draw and a bad turn that worked to our advantage. Very excited to see what new Luminaris does for Prism. New Luminaris really lends itself towards a Heralds-centric plan, and that is going to be very bad for FaB. I don't know if that changes our list. I don't know if we end up needing to run more poppers in our build to try and stop Prism, but Heralds are generally bad for FaB. 2 cost 7 power Heralds that generate anywhere from 4 to 7 more value on hit is not going to be good for us. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that until a few months from now, but it is something to think about. But for the moment, Prism's pretty easy. Just hit her real hard until she dies. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something from it. Please head jab that like button if you did. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. And I will be back tomorrow with more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.